thank you for being here and submitting the proposal for CCSS.
Thank you.
Our, we want to be able to ask follow-up questions to your proposal, and we want to get better acquainted with you. And then hopefully at the end of the day, to be able to make a decision as to who we're going to engage as our search consultant. Our format's going to be very simple. We'll give you up to 20 minutes to present yourself and your firm any way that you would like, and then we will take turns asking questions as trustees and engage in dialogue. So again, welcome, and in the interest of time,
We'll
we
get
begin.
Well, thank you all very much for this opportunity to come before you and audition to help you find your next best wonderful person in the world, your leader, your chancellor. This is a very important exercise for you. As you know, this is the one thing the board does, and it's very important that you want to get it done right. And our firm stands by all of our searches, and my job is to make this process run smooth, come to completion, and at the end of the day, you're a happy board because you got the leader, you got the person that you wanted to have. You've had a great chancellor here. I know Joan Smith. Big shoes to fill, but you can do it. It's a great district, and I think we're going to have a great success with doing this search. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are. You've already had an opportunity to take a look at the proposal, and you know a bit about us already. First of all, our firm has been around since 1995, so that's just a little over 20 years at this point in time. We believe that services to the districts and searches are key, and I'm just going to identify a few examples. First, we facilitate searches, we don't run them. This is your search. This is the board search. You run this search. My job is to facilitate the process and make sure at the end of the day there is a candidate that you want to hire. We are very sensitive to the culture of the districts. We've done a lot of searches. You saw our list of searches. We make a special effort to get to know the district, to get to know the culture of the district. And there's some ways we do that, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But it's very important because every district is special and every district is different. And so it's essential to acknowledge and recognize the culture of the district. We go out of our way to make sure all of the applicants, people who are interested in applying for the job, are fully informed about the process for the search and have information that will, help them better understand what they can anticipate along the search calendar timeline and when things will happen. We provide options based on experience to the board, but the final decision is your decision. If you're not happy with anyone, we guarantee all of our searches. We go back out again. If you're not happy with anyone, we charge you nothing but my expenses to come to Modesto. But at the end of the day, it's not the search consultant's selection, it's your selection. So that's even more reason why it's important that we have candidates that you are excited about and look forward to choosing. What else can I tell you? Okay, so 4 important components related to the search that I just want to highlight. Services provided, and when we go through the comprehensive search outline, I have a handout I'm going to give you shortly. Services provided, successful completed searches, our recruitment strategies, we outlined those in the proposal. We have national, state, professional organizations and affiliates associated with our firm that we rely upon, if you will, for nominations. So we expect to have both national and state nominations, and I'll tell you more about how we'll go about getting that. That's also identified in the proposal. And finally, this can't be taken too lightly, and I know that you've been through this a few times, the reference checking. The vetting is critical. We do criminal, we do civil, we have investigators, we have our reference checkers are retired newspaper reporters. This is what they love to do. We do references on both on lists, because as you know, no candidate's going to give you a name that they are worried about. So we investigate on lists, but we also investigate off lists. So for example, I would ask you during the course of the interview or at the end of the interview, is there anyone else you know of that has direct experience or knowledge with this candidate that I should talk to? And you're going to tell me either yes or no. And if you say yes, I'm going to call that person. So we end up with lots of references, and the reports are confidential. They only come to you. No one else ever sees them, not even the candidate. So that's part of some of the services that you're going to find useful in helping you toward that decision. And here comes the handout. This is more of a generic handout than what is in the proposal. The proposal was more specific because you asked questions, and we wanted to make sure we were able to give you straight answers related to this search versus a generic component. But to just remind you, the absolute important components of a search that leads to a successful search pretty much includes all of these. In fact, any search firm you interview is going to show you something like this, and they should if they know what they're doing. So in the first phase of your search, it's very important to meet with the board, get an idea what qualities and aspects and skills and experience you're looking for in your next leader. Also, we like to do community opportunities to get the same kind of information. So you would tell us, who should we talk to in the community? Or do we create a community forum where people can come and lend their ideas about what kind of person they would like to see as the next chancellor? We also like to talk to your faculty and staff. We can do that by electronic means, the SurveyMonkey, or we could do it in a public forum where they are identifying skills, qualities, aspects, what have you, characteristics that they'd like to see in the next chancellor. And when you put all that qualitative information together, now you have what can become a profile of the potential candidate for chancellor. And the profile starts to help you build your position announcement or your brochure. We also, how shall I say, subscribe to the Aspen Institute. I'm sure you've heard of the Aspen Institute in terms of leadership, skills, characteristics, qualities, and traits. We try to incorporate that should you desire, you're interested in any of those particular characteristics or traits in leadership, along with the qualitative data we've collected from you, your community, and your faculty and staff. So that's going to help build up that position announcement and brochure. And then in terms of candidate recruitment, again, we ask you to think about potential candidates that you might want to nominate. Your faculty and staff may have people they know of or heard of that they feel to nominate. But we have a very tried and true process, very tried and true, where we essentially email and letter CEOs in 1,200 plus institutions nationwide. In California, we do the email blast to all the CEOs asking for nominations. That's where we get the nominations from. We also have a database of candidates who, because we do so many searches, are in current searches perhaps. And for those who don't always land or get hired, they often can make or could make a good candidate for your chancellor search as well. Again, it depends on the fit. You're going to have that final decision. But because our firm is a firm of 10 people, we operate as a team, we share names, so our database is thick and long. We know lots of people in the state and out of the state, because we also have consultants working out of California to help us in our recruiting. And I think that might have been explained somewhat in your proposal. We also do phone calling. I do a lot of phone calling, and a lot of times that's the best way to do it. Hello, Joan, how are you? You are too young to be retiring. Oh, poor Yosemite Community College District, they're going to miss you forever. Got any names? So, I mean, and we know lots of CEOs, and we're able to make those kind of calls. So all of that combined really helps to produce and generate a robust list of qualified candidates who can potentially come before you. Again, it's going to be your decision. You have the final call. In terms of the process itself, we also help facilitate the screening, I call it the screening rubric, the screening criteria form that your committee is going to evaluate one candidate against another in terms of distinct characteristics on the rubric. And the rubric comes from the position brochure. I do not have any rubrics that are being used in every search. Every search I do, which is why my searches are successful, I think, is because the rubric is based on the position announcement. When I was doing training for CEOs for AACC, one of the things we always told them is when you read a position announcement, it either resonates or it doesn't. The way you figure out if it resonates is you read the announcement and you check off everything you have experience in, everything you have skills and knowledge in, and everything you can talk about. If that doesn't happen, it's the wrong position. Don't bother applying, because the committee is going to be looking to see how you match up to that brochure and that position announcement. So the rubric, consequentially, has to be an evaluation form that evaluates fairly what you say you're looking for. And that's how you get the match. That's where the match comes from. They all have to align and be in sync. So we help and assist in that way. The committee will help and facilitate that paper screening process, selection of the candidates. We assist in preparing the question, another exercise. So the interview questions that the committee will ask will not be the old questions from the last time you did a search. The interview questions will be questions generated based on the, guess what? Position announcement, the brochure. Here's what you say you want. Here's what we've screened, and now the questions are generated around that brochure. Again, another checkpoint to ensure we're leading up to candidates coming before the committee and before the board that make sense, align with what you've asked for, and are people you could seriously consider for the next chancellor. So that's an important point in all of this process as well. Obviously, we call and brief the candidates, explaining the process again, helping them better understand what's going to happen going forward. We assist in any college forums you may choose to have. We assist in contract negotiations if you want that. Comprehensive reference reports, I just talked about that. It's very thorough. It only comes to you. It's confidential. And your board interviews, we can assist in helping to prepare questions for your final interviews with the candidates. Oftentimes there are specific questions each trustee, because of your specific interest, would like to know more about when you get in front of the candidates, which is fine. And then there are, I call them general questions you might ask that would pertain in a general way. But if you end up with questions from each trustee, that's just fine. I will talk to you about how to generate that. There's a way to do that. I've worked with a lot of boards who believe it's very important that every trustee has an opportunity to ask any question he or she would like or more, and that's just fine. And often boards will divide themselves in a board subcommittee to work with me on developing those questions and then come back before the full board to discuss and get approval, final approval. But we do assist in that. Obviously, the finalists are contacted by me after the screening or selection committee generates their candidates to go before you. It's my job to call the ones who are coming before you and the ones who aren't. As long as I've been doing this, it's still uncomfortable and not much fun calling the ones who aren't going to come before you. They're often very disappointed. But the ones who are coming before you, it's my responsibility to let them know about that process and timeline and when they're going to meet with you. Let's see if I left anything else out. Other than just to say that there is a draft schedule in the proposal. That, of course, is only a draft. Should I be selected and our firm be chosen, that schedule can be modified to your comfort and convenience. And I think finally, we guarantee our work. Again, this is very important for you to know, that if for whatever reason you aren't happy with any of the candidates brought before you, we would do the search over again for cost only. And I think I covered most of everything I wanted to talk about. Now I can answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Ann, would you like to start us?
All right. I have a question on the packet, the request for proposal. On page 17, it mentions that you have conducted a search for the Yosemite Community College District. It's on page 17.
I have page 17, I have page 15.
I can show it to you.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I was just,
Does it say what year?
well, see, none of this says what year. And I think,
Oh, that's probably the deal. What year? I don't know what year that might have been.
well, I would suggest that in the future you put the dates on these.
Yeah, the years.
And some of them even put the person. So do you know what search you conducted? Was this, did we hire someone? Do you know what it was?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have no idea who did the search
Okay.
for this community college district.
Or for what
I'm
position?
sure. Yeah, I'm sure if it's on the list, they did it, and I'd be happy to get an answer for you, so you would know who did the search, which consultant did
Would
the
any of you
search.
be curious about that? Or
Yes, that's something that I could follow up on if you would like.
Yeah, I would be happy to find
Might have
that out.
been a
It just, all it
presidential
takes is a phone call. I could give you the answer before I leave.
Okay.
It had to be a presidential search.
We'd
It could have been a
appreciate it.
presidential search. It might not have been a chancellor
Search
search.
or,
Because you've had a number of searches over the past 10 years.
probably we'll have several
yeah.
to the future.
either Maria Sheehan or Rich. Richard.
Well, you'll follow up on that, won't you?
Yeah. I mean, it was just,
And I'm happy to give an answer.
Okay.
okay, that's
Thank
a
you.
curiosity question.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Let me pass right now for
Okay.
other questions.
Yes, I was, where did I put it? You mentioned about matching up the culture of the district with
Oh,
the
yeah.
candidate. Could you expand on that a little bit more?
Okay, so every college district has its culture, and that's neither good or bad or indifferent. It just is what it is. What's important is to get the input from the college community, the trustees, the faculty and staff, your outlying external community, which helps to provide information about what kind of place this is. What is the culture of the Yosemite Community College District? That's critical in terms of developing a brochure and a position announcement. So that's essentially what I'm talking about. Every district has its culture. We don't make any judgment on culture. It just is what it is. It's like your family, you know. Your family has a culture. You know, everybody gets along. That's a great culture. Everybody doesn't get along. It's your family. You didn't choose them. They chose you. But you got to work with that when you're looking to announce something and have others consider coming in. That's all that means.
Okay. I had one other one if I could. I think this was it. Your recent searches, there are a lot of VPs and VCs. Do you recall, and I'm asking this not just wanting to know whether you've done chancellor president searches recently, but kind of a question about the market as you see it right now. So I guess maybe I'll combine that. Have you done many president or chancellor searches recently, and what's the market like as you see it?
Yes, the answer is yes. Personally, I've done 10. I've been retired 6 years. I retired in 2010. I've done 10. The last chancellor search I did was Peralta Community College District last summer. I am doing 2 president searches now, finishing one this month, finishing one in June. I do average of 2 or 3 president searches a year. So the market, there are a lot of people looking for presidencies, not that many looking for chancellors, but the good news is your next chancellor will probably have served as a college president somewhere. So the market is excellent. I don't see a problem at all in terms of identifying potential candidates who have at least presidential experience, either here in the state or nationally. So I think it's positive. I think it's good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. White, in my view, there are 2 parts to a successful administrator. One is a professional capability, and the other is personal integrity. Now, the first one is easy to check up on. The second is not. So how are you going to do that?
That happens through the reference checks. That's number one. Sooner or later in that process, we uncover everything, and trust me, we have. The other piece is for any candidate going forward as a finalist, I ask them directly, is there anything we're going to find in your reference checks that will potentially hurt your candidacy? Is there anything in there I need to know? Is there anything in there that could potentially embarrass the college district and the Board of Trustees? If they don't tell me, that's not good. They're not going to be on my list for anything else, because to me, that's an integrity question. Why didn't you fully disclose? What are you hiding? We're going to find out anyways, and believe me, we do. So I think this process of vetting is how we get to the integrity question. Whatever is in their past as an administrator is there. And if they haven't reckoned with it and owned up to it and have some explanation about it that makes sense, then we will find out about it. They haven't said anything about it, and to me, that's an integrity problem, because they should have been talking about that at least at the level, first level, selection committee. They're not going to ask those kind of questions, and they're looking for skills and qualifications and all of that. But you need to be concerned about integrity, and so we have a way of finding out.
Thank you.
And dealing with the candidate if they don't tell us first.
Yeah.
Dr. White, it seems like the brochure development is really the foundation that the search is built upon. And the trustees may be playing the most important role in that brochure development. It's really asking, what does the district need to best serve
Right.
the students in the community? How long do you spend with the trustees in that initial meeting? And what's, if you give me some more detail as to what that meeting is like in developing this foundation.
Sure. It often takes more than one meeting. The first meeting sort of sets the groundwork for the ideas. I call it a brain dump. We just get the ideas, no judgment, no evaluation, just talking. And we get all of that identified. And then it's collated and organized and sent back to you. For example, the skills and qualities will be a separate category. And under qualifications, you may have collective bargaining experience, budget management and resource allocation. You may have ideas or thoughts about fundraising and external resource attainment. So what we do is we get your ideas and what you're thinking you want, and then we organize it into categories and shoot it back to you. You take a look at it, you do the blue pencil or what have you, and then it comes back, okay? And when it comes back, it's going to be organized again. I like to use the word refined. It will be refined. And you will see it again in its refinement. And by then, you're pretty comfortable with it because you've been talking about it and thinking about it and editing or, well, I like this better. So it usually takes more than one meeting. It could take as much as two in a special meeting kind of atmosphere. And depending on how you want to do it, there's two ways to do it. Some boards like to say, okay, we've had our process, this is what we want. Some boards say, okay, we've had our process, this is what we think we want, but we want to hear from the faculty and staff and the community. In either case, we're going to do that, but in this case, you've kind of decided these are the attributes. This is what we're after. And when we go out to the public forums for campus and community, we say, here's what the Board of Trustees has identified. And you can say it's okay to ask them if they want to add anything. Or we'll say, here's what the Board of Trustees has been thinking about. What do you think, and do you want to add anything? In either case, we'll get the input from your internal and external stakeholders, but it's going to be your first shot at creating that groundwork.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass her now. Go ahead.
Dr. White, I enjoyed your presentation, and I love the fact that you call finalists that don't make it. I think that's a really nice touch, and I would appreciate that if we were to choose you. I am concerned about your reference to saying you have newspaper people to do reference checks. How do you follow them? How do you have them in your back pocket so you?
Yeah.
I mean,
They work for our firm. They are retired reporters.
okay.
They don't currently work for anybody's newspaper.
Oh, okay,
They are investigative reporters. They work for us. We
Okay.
pay them.
okay. All right, I feel better about that then.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think the reference checks, as we've mentioned, is huge.
Oh,
And, but
Very
they are
important.
part of your firm, and they're.
that's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
all right, thank you.
In fact, you'll love this. One of the investigators is named Joe Scribe. Every time I send him an email, it's like, Joe Scribe. That's so easy to remember, Joe Scribe. Scribe.
Sure,
Go
great,
figure.
thank you.
Yes.
My question sort of ties into Lynn's question in regards to the candidates and how you work as a team. I see that you are, first of all, located in Green Bay, California. I'm not sure where that is.
It's Marin County.
It's Marin County. Just wanted to clarify, because one of the concerns is that we would have access to you, easy access to you, so that if we had any questions, we would be able to contact you pretty quickly, and you'd be available to us.
It took me 1 hour and 40 minutes to get to Modesto yesterday. Of course, it was Sunday, but get the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
We're pretty close.
okay.
That's about what it took me to come from Sherlock to Modesto.
Is that right? An hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, what was it? Oh, that's.
And you're,
I don't know,
Yeah,
just back to back for 13 miles.
wow.
Good thing I left early.
Yeah, no kidding.
So tell me a little bit more about your team. There's a John Romo that would be associated with this search
Yes, John
also?
Romo is retired CEO from Santa Barbara Community College. I think he's been with the firm now for about, I want to say 10 years, maybe a little less. So he would be my backup. He would assist me in recruiting And if for any reason something came up where I couldn't show up or whatever, he'd be the backup person. But I'm not anticipating that to happen.
So basically, it's you two. You are
Yeah.
the team that's
We are
working
the leads.
along with the other individuals who would be doing the background reference checks.
John Romo will do, along with the others who are doing the background reference check. Now, let me be clear about the team. We have other consultants that are doing searches right now, and when I say the whole team is engaged in recruitment, that's what I'm talking about. The background checks are going to professional people who've been doing this a very long time for our firm. We've never been sued. So that's what they do. But John is my backup for this search. And the other colleagues in our firm are helping us with names and nominations. So that's what I mean when I say the whole team is on board for recruitment.
We've got, okay, hopefully that's not gonna happen again. Okay. I was gonna say, we have to go out.
Duck and cover.
But you two essentially would be our contact
That's
people?
correct. That's correct. I'm the lead, and John is my backup.
Okay. You mentioned searches that you're presently involved in. That's what, 2 right now that you're involved in?
Yes.
So at any one time, how many searches are you involved in, more or less?
It depends. It depends. It can be 1, it can be 2. I don't recall doing 4 searches at one time, but I've done 3 at once, and they all turned out fine.
Okay. All right. You've answered my questions about accessibility. I just wanted to understand. I wanted to
I'm not
clarify
far
that.
away.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd like to ask one more question about the
Sure.
background checks. At what stage in the candidates does it begin? Do you wait until we have finalists to start background checks?
That's correct.
Okay.
Once the finalists are identified, we begin our background checks. It takes us 2 weeks. So the
How many
calendar,
finalists do you usually?
that's up to you.
But-
That's your call. Boards often say 3 to 5. Some boards have it in policy. We want 5. So it's your call. But the more finalists, typically the longer it takes. But typically 3 to 5 finalists, about 2 weeks, because we have at least 3 people who can be working on it.
How important is site visitations to you? I've been on 2 of them, and they weren't really turned out to be what they were supposed to be.
Well, in all candor,
Yes.
I think they're a waste of money and a waste of time. I think for psychological reasons, they can be important. You can sleep at night and say, I actually visited the place where this person used to work. But frankly, site visits are a lot like the reference list they're going to turn in. You can make arrangements to see any leader of any group. Again, I think it's psychological.
Well,
I don't tell you not to do it. It's your call. It depends on how you feel about spending the money and taking the time to go on a site visit. I would help you set up the site visit so that you could see the constituent leaders and individuals you would like to see. But I got to be honest, I've been doing this a long time. When I retired, I had been a CEO for 11 and a half years, 2 different institutions, very successful. I have been in this business for 38 years when I retired in 2010. I've never talked to a board who felt like the site visit really helped them make up their mind. But I'm not saying they don't exist. It's just not been my experience. Now, someone who's been doing searches for 25 years might say something differently. You got to do a site visit or you're not doing your trustee duty. Well, I say to boards, because I get that question every time, my answer to you is, it's your call. This is your search. This is your chancellor. This is your only employee. According to the Ed Code, you only hire one person, that's the chancellor. It's your call. What makes you comfortable? What gives you confidence? you should consider that.
I think
Go ahead.
site visits are only important if the candidate is currently working in Hawaii.
Okay.
And in that
And Lynn and I will,
Yes.
Lynn and I
And
will.
in that case, I'm going to reverse myself and agree with you.
Dr. DeWine, I have a question on salary.
Yes.
When do you recommend those discussions be held? Because I have a concern that we go through this time and effort and come up with a candidate that we really like and he's been vetted, and all of a sudden he or she has unrealistic salary expectations, and it's all been a waste of time. So talk about that, and has your experience ever had any problems concerning that?
Well, the position announcement will most likely say salary and compensation is negotiated. So it's negotiable. It's negotiable with you, the board. I think you could either do that in an interview, or I don't know when else you could do it. You could raise the question in an interview. Or if you didn't want to raise the question in an interview, what I have seen happen is the board will identify not a person of interest. That sounds like NCIS. I don't mean a person of interest. I call them a lead candidate. And that's when you do it. After you've interviewed your 3 finalists or 4, whatever you choose, you identify a lead candidate and you start to have those discussions. You haven't made any promises, you haven't done anything final, you hadn't had a board meeting, took a vote. You just all agreed this is our lead person, this is a person of interest to us. And that's when you can have those confidential conversations about the salary. I can tell you that Yosemite is a little below, depending on who you get in your pool, and this is something you got to be prepared for because it happens. Every now and then you get a couple of hot shots, and they're in other searches. They're finalists in other searches, and your job is to be concerned if they are your lead candidate. You know, what is my leverage against those other districts who may be talking to them also? And I would let you know that, because why? I would know that information. So identify a lead candidate, that's my recommendation, and then have those discussions. By then you'll know if they're in any other searches, so you can judge, you know, what your negotiating range will be. And then before all of that happens, your homework assignment is, as a board, is to decide what is going to be your range. What are you interested in doing? How far you want to go? Where's the bottom line? And by the time you have identified that lead candidate, you're ready to talk.
And you can tell us if a candidate is in another search?
I sure can.
Okay,
I have my sources.
I figured.
Has it been your experience that if we encounter a hot shot and we pay the money, is it worth it?
Well. Wow. How do we know?
Wow,
That's a good question.
that's a good question. Okay, so in my personal experience, the answer, I haven't had any disasters. The answers have been yes. In fact, the chancellors are still working in those districts. So
Got a good
it
deal.
could be worth it. Could be. A lot depends on what happens, as you know. But it could be.
That's not an answer.
I know that's not an answer, but who knows? I mean, there's so many variables in terms of chancellor success, and so many contingencies around what is going to make a great marriage or relationship with the board. There's lots involved.
Yeah.
You know, 20 grand one way or the other on a $100 million budget is nothing.
Yeah,
So it has great potential.
has great potential.
She only have so many
True.
suits.
Isn't that true?
Do we have any more
I
questions?
just had one more question. Given your experience with community colleges, given that budget is always going to be a challenge for community colleges, I was just curious to know what you feel personally is a challenge for chancellors of community colleges in our area.